All right, guys, welcome this evening. Welcome to this episode of All Things REI with Rodrigo. And he is a guest that we've talked about having on for a while because me and him met at Expand talking, and we almost had an interview there, and things weren't really aligning until tonight. So we kind of have this impromptu live going out tonight here on Facebook and as well on YouTube too. So without further ado, let's get started and get right into it. So Rodrigo, actually, you're a seasoned investor here, and you've got a fund going, and you've been in the game quite a while. You're a former Wealth Genius coach, I believe, too, or you still are. You've done a lot of things, but I guess maybe to start out, can you introduce yourself to the people so that they know who you are and kind of how you got started?
Thanks, Tom. Happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. So a bit about myself. My name is Rodrigo Parada, born and raised in Montreal. I still live in Laval, suburb of Montreal. Been investing in real estate since 2018. Started with small multifamilies. Did the toughest JV out there by partnering up with my family, my two brothers and my dad. Grew steadily the portfolio, then started investing outside of my home province. Took some coaching, met the right people, and we launched an investment fund last year. And now I'm investing mainly in Alberta. That's a bit about myself, about what I'll do on the business side, Tom.
Alberta. And where are you, I guess, where are you based out of right now?
So right now I'm in Laval, so that's a suburb of Montreal.
Montreal. I love Montreal. I've been there once way back when, but the food is amazing. That's what I think a lot of people say, but
But actually, no, it's true. Like
yeah.
our food scene is amazing, but you gotta arm yourself with patience because Montreal is like that person that's always working on itself. It's never done with all the work, the construction, and everything.
Yeah.
And we love the city like that, I guess.
So that's why you decided to invest elsewhere, because all the construction, they can't get to your projects, right?
Yeah, that's it. I got fed up. I'm like, screw it. I'm gonna go elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I like how you said you got started by JVing and partnering with your own family. That's really, I feel like you were fortunate to have family that's actually you're willing to work with, because I know some people can't say the same. So what kind of made you jump into it and full all in, I guess? What made you
Um,
do your first deal?
yeah. So that's a really tough question initially that I because I try to find like the smart thing to say. And what ended up coming up as an answer is basically because I found something in real estate investing that I knew that I couldn't just keep for myself.
Mm,
And I'm the eldest. I come from an immigrant background. My mom's from El Salvador, my dad's from Chile.
mm-hmm.
And like we were at dinner once with the whole family a few years back, and I realized that I didn't want to be the only one that eventually was going to be doing quote unquote well, right?
Yes.
So that's when I started bringing up this subject, explaining a bit of how we were going to do it. I was mostly self-taught at that point, listening to podcasts and reading the random book here and there. But eventually, got my brothers on board. My dad was always there to support us, and we bought our first fourplex together.
Oh wow. That's actually pretty fantastic. I like how you said, like, essentially no man left behind.
Yep.
Yeah, that's huge, because I'll tell you, I'm kind of in a similar boat, because me and my brother started investing, but we actually just had a family meeting start at 2025 saying, okay, how can we collectively as a group get into something and work together, because we don't want to leave my sister behind, and get my mom and my aunt involved too and all that jazz. So I really resonate with that. That's pretty cool. Did you do that first fourplex though in Montreal, or did you do already right away? Did you go to like Alberta? Like how did that work? Or
No,
did it
so
take some
so
convincing?
no, no, no. So we started with secondary markets around Montreal
Okay.
simply because of the price point. So that first one was in Sainte Thérèse, which is just a bit north of Montreal.
Hmm.
And we bought assets for like 2 years, roughly, like up until COVID hit. And we got to the point that a lot of retail investors get to where our debt to income ratio was capped out, right? So I knew that I needed to get into like bigger assets, commercial mortgages, but I didn't know how to do it without limiting the knowledge gap, right?
Mm.
That's when I started looking for mentorship and coaching, joined Well Genius, as you mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
and then got exposed to different markets, different provinces, and that led me gradually into Alberta. My partners are still my brothers, still my dad. Our family holding is an investor in some of our deals out west, but I started a new partnership with two partners that live in Alberta to fully go at this. So yeah, got bigger and bigger, really.
I like that. And so, what I guess drew you to Alberta specifically? Because I have some reasons in my head, but maybe for the viewers, maybe they don't realize like what makes Alberta such an attractive market to kind of start investing in.
Well, the thing is, I started with burrs,
Mm,
right? That's what I did when I first started out in our real estate adventure, and it was getting tougher and tougher in Quebec. I looked into Ontario, it was getting tougher and tougher there. And when I found out that in Alberta, you could still do these value add plays with larger multifamily assets, and I understood how I could get it done after having done my due diligence, that's basically what I did. So, to sum it up, in Alberta, you can do what's called you can give 90-day notices to tenants to increase rents.
mm,
So that was one of the main factors because probably where you're from, Tom, there's this thing called cash for keys, right?
yep.
Component, a little line in our pro forma that we always include when we're doing our projects just to see how we can optimize our revenue. And when I found out that I didn't need to do that on my projects and I could go faster in Alberta, like everything started to click. So that would be the main one, I would say.
Mm, okay, that's pretty sweet. I I like Alberta too because it seems like out west right now the price per door is a little bit more effective or cost effective than places in like the big city like Toronto or something like that, right? How do you?
It is. It is.
Okay, yeah, I think that's another positive right there too. So were you able to fully burr the whole project out, or
Yeah.
were you ever
Yeah,
leaving
so
a little
what
bit
we
still in
did,
the deal?
sorry, Tom, because I was getting a bit of lag. So we did burr the first project. It was a 38 unit that we bought in a quaint little town called Rocky Mountain House. And we bought that asset at $1.9 million for 38 doors. So that's 50K per door. So in line with what you were saying about the price point. And we just recently completed our refinance at $5.6 million in roughly 14 months.
Oh wow, wow, that's quite that's a good return. So how many units was this, or can I describe a bit of the financials, like rough kind of just rough numbers, or like how did that
Yeah,
go
yeah,
down?
absolutely.
Because especially from you
Absolutely.
doing it from afar, it sounds like you trusted a team to do part of the work, but I don't know really where to start. Maybe how'd you find the property in the first place?
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the property and the town itself. So we basically, when I was telling you that I had a partner over there, this guy, his name is Alvaro. I met him when he was in Montreal, and he decided to move to Alberta for real estate investing. And Alvaro and I started putting properties under contract in Calgary, in Edmonton, and then we were just looking for deals. And we were presented a 38 unit in Rocky Mountain House that was listed.
Mm,
And that was roughly at, if I remember correctly, like $4 million. Dollars.
wow.
And we did our due diligence, we did our reports, and we had an appraisal done, but we were never able to close on the actual transaction just because we wouldn't agree on a
On a
purchase
price.
price with the realtor, right?
Understood.
But what ended up happening is the actual appraiser that was, working with us, he's like, "Why are you buying this one at 4 mil when there's one like not far from here that's at 2.2, something like that." I'm like, "Oh,
Oh
really?"
wow. So basically half the price.
So yeah, really. So basically, we did a walkthrough. We realized that it wasn't a crack house. It wasn't rat infested. Like there was nothing wrong with it. It was just, you know, improperly managed. There was no number for people to call to book a showing,
Hmm.
and it was 55% vacant. And that's why it was listed on the market and nobody scooped it up.
Oh,
Nobody
just
did the
really
homework.
underperforming basically.
Oh, massively. So we ended up, pursuing the acquisition. We partnered up with another partner who actually was a GC.
Hmm.
And how we structured the partnership is that he would get some equity to put in a bit of capital and his time, but also we would give him vested shares through his basically his company to do the work that would be released to him once he's completed.
Mm,
And I think to answer one of your questions, like how did I make that happen? It's just basically understanding how to do proper business and a bit of human nature. Like if everybody's properly incentivized, everybody does the right level of work.
Right. Yeah, you definitely want to make people feel like they had a favorable outcome, like a good deal. Like you don't want to feel like someone's gypped because then they're gonna have resentment or something's gonna kind of fester and yeah, it won't work out too well.
No.
How did you vet this GC in the first place? Because some people are probably thinking, wow, if I'm in Montreal and I have to go all the way to Alberta, like how do you trust this person or how were they recommended? Did you go there in person? Uh,
So that's a funny story because I met this person at a gala.
oh,
His 1 year old bumped into my leg, and we just started talking. I told him I had this project in Alberta, was looking for, construction partner, and he's like, "Well, I do construction." I'm like, "Okay." So it's kind of like, life puts stuff in your way, and it's about you deciding to follow suit.
hmm,
So we started talking, and getting into business with someone is kind of like a marriage, really. And like any good marriage, ideally you date before.
hmm.
And that's what we did. We started talking, seeing if our interests were aligned. Obviously, there's a form of due diligence that's done, sorry, when you're asking for referrals, you're talking to other people that would have dealt with this individual. But most importantly, our contract was properly structured by our lawyers so that both parties were protected, because that's what it is at the end of the day, right?
Hmm.
Like if something is to happen,
Yeah,
when the
God forbid
emotions,
something goes wrong. Just you got to be
that's
hedge
it.
your bets.
That's it. That's it. So you buy peace. That's what I
Mm.
like to say.
I
That's
like
what we
that.
did.
Yeah, you buy peace. It's worth putting up a little bit more money up front to make sure that you don't have those issues later on.
100%, Tom. So that's how we did it for with the GC. But over and above anything, if you're just looking at the financials, I was in the same town, and I had a property that was roughly double the price on the contract. Does it mean that that's what it was worth? No.
Hmm.
But I knew buying something at 50 cents on the dollar compared to the other property in town, it was really hard for me to mess up with all that gap that I could work
Right.
with.
The built-in equity,
So
essentially.
yeah, so that was, our first level of risk mitigation. And then we went to work. We walked around the city. We looked around like for the fundamentals of real estate, which is really the same thing everywhere. Like as small of a town as it was, like it had all the fundamentals. It had a small airport, hospital, all the big banner stores, banks,
Hmm.
commercial storage. So even though it was a small town compared to what we see in the east, I realized that it was a hub for all the smaller hubs around it, and that was another level of risk mitigation. And that's when we decided to pull the trigger and just get it done.
Right on. And then how did you finance this? Was it mostly, did you bring some and then GC brought some and that was enough to qualify for the mortgage on this?
So what we ended up doing is we syndicated this deal.
Hmm.
Initially, we had raised from friends and family, and we had access to roughly 775K of registered funds
Wow.
from all the partners. And what ended up happening is because this was an asset that was 55% vacant, underperforming in a small town, obviously lenders weren't, lining up in the streets to lend on it. So we had to get something a bit more aggressive. We got a bridge loan for a year. It was a 65% loan to value for the purchase, and we got a construction loan behind it of $1 million
Hmm.
to do the work that we needed to do on the asset.
Oh, wow. So what kind of work did you have to do? Just renovate some units or were there any big issues that caused it to also be underperforming?
No, nothing major. We didn't go like full HGTV on the suites
Hmm.
because the asset and the town really I don't think would be able to absorb it,
Hmm.
and it wasn't necessary to what we wanted to accomplish. So we renovated some suites because we went MLI Select with energy efficiency. For the refi, we did some energy efficiency components. So changed the boilers, furnaces, hot water tanks,
Hmm.
um, changed the roof, and that was basically it. Nothing too drastic, man.
Did that get you to your like your 50-year amortization or at least 40-year? Like how long were you able to stretch it out?
So we got it at 45-year
Oh,
AM
wow.
and 95 LTV.
See, that's huge, the 95, because then you can definitely burr that and pull your money back out and then some.
Yeah, so for us, that's a very good point. So for us, what really ended up being the starting point of where we are right now is because we had our investors and we had this capital that was, partnered up with us, the way that we saw this deal was basically our claim that we're able to do these types of projects, right? It's not just a pipe dream. It's not just thinking that we could be able to do it. No, we set it out, we did it, and we achieved incredible returns for our investors. And that's what led to the other acquisitions that we did after that.
Oh my goodness. Do you have a target? Maybe this is maybe getting ahead of myself, but do you have like a target return on investment for your investors or for your kind of your business?
Well, I think that what's safe to project
Hmm.
in these types of projects between 12 to 15 annualized in terms of ROI. We don't really, right now, we're not doing IRRs because we're in Canada and we don't really have dispositions, especially in value add deals. And
Understood.
when you're getting 95% LTVs on your refi, like it kind of defeats the purpose.
Mm.
So yeah, around like the 12 to 15% return annualized is what we're aiming for. And with the new fund that we're doing within our mutual fund trust, we're actually going to be giving returns, but also equity to our investors
Oh
in
wow.
our assets.
See, that's a healthy return, and then also getting some equity on top of that's pretty like that's like kind of that's a juicy deal. Hard to pass up. Can you explain to myself, but also maybe to people listening, what is a mutual trust fund, and like how's that all work?
Yeah,
Because
so that's a
yeah,
great question, and I don't want to take the
or
rest of the
oh yeah,
of the
it's probably a huge question. I know this isn't necessarily financial advice, but generally speaking, like what is it and how's it work? Because it's
yes.
taking registered funds essentially and then putting it towards buildings and things like that.
So through a mutual fund trust, it's basically a flow through to be able to have access to registered funds. So the thing is, in this country, and this is not financial advice, talk to your accountants, lawyers, and advisors, but you can use registered funds to put second rank mortgages on assets that have the equity. There are multiple trusts out there that do this.
Mm.
The thing about doing this on a personal level is that you have to put that level of security, usually in the form of a second rank mortgage on an asset. The thing with a mutual fund trust is that because we are an authorized vehicle to leverage these funds, we don't have to put second rank mortgages on assets. We provide term sheets and subscription agreements, just like a publicly listed company, right? So there is a different layer of complexity when you're doing these deals. And in our case, when we're looking at what's being done through other mutual fund trusts and what we're doing, we're securing our investors by providing them equity in all of the assets that my partners and I are qualifying to buy. And
Oh,
that's in our general partner, limited partner, GPLP.
so
Yeah.
generally people don't, or other trusts, mutual trusts don't provide the equity, and that's kind of what differentiates you a little bit.
They do in certain cases, but normally it's a minimal amount.
Hmm.
But then you have to do your research. But let's say if you're looking at I don't know, like a new development of 100 somewhat units, that's you might be able to get 100% of your initial return in 5 years. And you look at something at what we're doing with a quick turnaround that we have in the assets that we're buying with the MFT. It's just a different proposition. And as an investor, you just have to look at what fits your risk profile, if we could put it that way.
Hmm. I like that a lot. So then I guess staying on this kind of the trust a little bit, how does someone qualify, or how does someone get involved in the trust? Is there like a minimum amount that people have to invest, or do they have to be, people always throw around the term being accredited? Like what's kind of the barrier to entry, I guess?
Well, the barrier of entry is exactly what you just mentioned. Like, what type of investor are you, and do you qualify for this type of investment? Because in reality, it's alternative investments, sorry.
Hmm.
So, um, right now we are at a stage where we've used the friends and family condition, where we were able to show that this person that's participating with us fits that category, and we've had the correct paperwork filled out and submitted to our lawyers. But where we are going as a business is we're going down the accredited investor route because it's simpler, it's easier, and I think that we're at the stage where we need to start doing that. So in our case, what we're doing right now is we're going to be working with what's called an exempt market dealer, an EMD, and that is basically a professional body that either vets your investors to make sure that they are qualified, or they professionally raise capital for you.
Oh, gotcha. That was actually another question I had. So the capital raising itself, are you mainly the one uh, finding these investors are raising, or do you have other people on your team that are doing it, like maybe one of your brothers or your father doing that as well? Because I
So
know to crowdfund all these resources, it takes a good amount of capital to deploy in these bigger buildings that you're starting to do.
So I would say that I usually take care of the capital raising and, the pitching.
Hmm.
But all of the partners involved, participate in some way, whether it's more implicated or not.
Hmm.
And that's what made this decision that we were talking about going down the EMD route a bit easier because at the end of the day, you get to a point that you really want to focus on operating the business and optimizing it, and to constantly being this capital raising mode is it's tiring, but also you're going to run out of fuel, right? Like I don't have access to all the country clubs across the country or North America, or all the wealthy individuals that people have built their businesses around. So might as well, again, buy peace, structure a partnership, have everybody properly compensated for their work,
Hmm.
and make sure that we're doing it right legally, and yeah, we don't need to worry about it. It's easier. Who, not how, right? Like that book.
Yeah, I love that book, and it's also another thing to add is like what Alfonso says: is the people's in between. People are in between you and your goals. So
There
it's
you go.
it's it's very, it's all about the people. It's a people's game, and if you
Yeah,
don't realize that in
absolutely.
real estate, then you're going to be in for a bad time.
That's true. That's true.
Oh man, did you have any? I'm just picking your brain because this is fascinating to me. Did you have any like prior business experience going into this, or did you kind of like you said you were reading books and you're listening to podcasts to help this happen, and maybe a bit of your mentors as well? How did you come to start developing this whole business? Because
Do you mean for the fun or just the real estate in general, or
I guess maybe real estate in general, because I think maybe the fun gets too niche for maybe everyone that's watching. But did you have any prior experience to that, like building businesses or having people skills to build the teams and put people in place?
I think the short answer is yes. But what it was is, I just turned 40, so there were like different phases of my life that led me to who I am now and where I am.
Hmm.
So from 2006 to 2011, I was a professional poker player. So I did that
Oh
while I
wow.
was in university. Yeah, I was an online poker player. I did that for a few years. And that taught me a lot about, money management, bankroll management, um, yeah, human nature.
I was gonna say
And I
human
also
nature too, how to
studied.
read a person.
Well, yeah, but because I was playing online, I was playing like 10 to 12 game at the same time, heads up cash games.
Oh.
So that really shaped the way that I view business in a sense that it's all about probabilities. That's how
Hmm.
my mind operates now. If I believe based on the information that I have, I don't know, a 75% chance of succeeding, then I will always take that
You'll
quote
pull the
unquote
trigger.
bet,
You'll yeah.
right? So that would be for the business side of things, where it kind of forced me to think differently. And also, there's something to be said about getting your ego crushed on a daily basis by playing cards because you're making the right decision based on the numbers, but lady luck isn't on your side on that day, right? So you got to learn to
Right.
deal with the hits. And then after that, I did some real estate appraisal on the residential side for a couple of months,
Hmm.
which led me to meet some really cool people randomly, namely this older lady that I was appraising one of her duplexes in the suburb of Montreal in Terrebonne. And then the lady just casually dropped, like, yeah, I own all the street. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, and even the daycare at the end, that's mine. And I'm like, lady,
Wow.
like, how is that? And we just started talking. So like I was exposed to the real estate side of things, but I knew it. I needed to get the real estate done because I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was younger, like prior
Classic.
to all of
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But I never really knew how it would fit in my life, and I had different priorities. So yeah, so did the real estate appraisal for a few months, but then I started working at CN, Canadian National. And I thought that was going to be my life, right? Because I always enjoyed trains. It's a great company to work for.
Hmm.
And I was fortunate enough that in the time that I was there, I got promoted quickly, got moved out of the ranks as a unionized worker, started managing my team. Then I was managing up to 50 unionized employees at one point.
Oh wow.
And,
So you had that
like just
management experience, how to manage people and
absolutely, right?
yeah.
So there's something about doing that type of management where, you know, how do you motivate somebody that's unionized when it's not like the same relationship to the work as somebody that doesn't have that level of security with their job, right? And I'm not saying anything bad about unions. That's not what I'm saying. Just as a manager, you have to always bring the best out of people because a leader is a manager and a manager is a leader ideally, and a leader is only as good as his team.
Mm.
So I could be the best at what I do, but if my team is not performing, then I'm looking bad. So I had to learn to navigate those waters, and it really helped me a lot because what I'm doing right now is just another level of that. I'm structuring teams where I know that the most important thing is obviously the incentives that we give to people, but also structuring an environment where somebody can be fulfilled in their job and feel that they belong and feel that they can grow and become a better version of themselves. That's how you build solid teams. And that's what I got out of my tenure at CN.
Would you
And
say, oh,
and then yeah, COVID happened, man.
yeah,
That was it.
then that kind of threw a wrench into everything, hey?
Well, yeah, I was furloughed for a few months in May 2020. And what happened is in April 2020, I had moved into a triplex that I was going to renovate,
Hmm.
and I now had all this free time, and I decided to go to YouTube University, learn a bit about how to do some of the work myself, renovated that triplex, and the rest is history.
Oh man. So back to really quickly back to incentivizing your team and everything like that. Do you find, because I'm at the point now where I'm trying to, like I said, talked about getting my family involved as well, but it's important to get teams going. How do you sell someone on a vision? Like how do you get them to buy in? Because that, I know that's a very tough question to ask, but is it purely by giving them a piece of the pie, or do you have to also lead from the front, like, and show them that you're working your butt off? Like how do you inspire that loyalty and that trust for them to come along for the ride?
So that's a really, really tough question to
I
answer,
know
man,
there's
because
probably not one perfect silver bullet answer. I don't
no, and I
expect you
mean, I'm
to.
gonna share what works for me, and people might say that it's BS because it hasn't worked in their life, but I think it's everything that you just mentioned. You got to lead from the front. You got to make sure that you put in the work because one, it is your business, but also like you got to show that you're willing to do the work, and it's not because you know you're here, or whatever, or you're more advanced that you don't get your hands dirty. Sometimes you have to, right? That's
Hmm.
that's part of being a leader. But also, I think that most importantly, you gotta figure out if the person that you're trying to partner up with, whether it's friends, family, whatever it is, you have to figure out if they really want it for
Mm.
themselves because you can't want it for them, and that's with everything in life, not just business, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the moment that you have those heart-to-heart conversations and you come at it from a position of, we're going to start building something together and it's potentially going to change our lives and the lives of our family. I want to make sure that you're in it for the right reasons and you're focused on the right things because before it gets better, it's going to get worse. Like we're going to go through hard times, like,
Absolutely.
and and that's what it is. So, the I find that the more that we do what we do, uh, the incentive part is easy because that's just a form of negotiation. The tough part is understanding where does everybody fit in the big picture based on their skill set that they either realize or they don't, but you're seeing, right? So if you're talking to somebody that you feel would be good as your COO, your operational guy or girl,
Hmm.
but they don't have the confidence yet, then it's just making sure that you put them in positions or situations where they have the ability to fail, minimize the risks, and they can grow from it, right? And if they don't fail, then even better. But it's all about that, right? Like it's making sure that we protect ourselves as much as we can and we focus on growing and doubling down on our strengths and not trying to be jacks of all trades.
I think that's the key right there. Don't be a jack of all trades, because often too many times, and I know this has probably been said many times before, but everyone wants to do it all themselves and then or lone wolf it, and that doesn't work. Especially if you're trying to go far and you're trying to go, you can't go it alone. So I really resonate with that because I've tried to do a lot myself, and then where does it get you? You're burned out, or you're starting to drop the ball in areas didn't even realize that there was an issue until it's too late. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's so I am realizing, like you're saying, put people in the right place. But I also like that you just said you're kind of, if they're not quite ready for the role that you think they're good at, you're giving them a chance to build them up, and a chance for them to shine and to grow and to learn. So that, I guess that takes a little bit of trust on your side, but as long as you mitigate the risk, it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that in the roles that we're talking about, like in the role of when you're in a leadership position, you have to trust.
Hmm.
If not, you won't be able to get the maximum out of people, and you won't be able to sleep at night because you're always worried about something.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're in a management position and you hire somebody. I like the expression hire slow, fire fast because
Hmm.
it's not personal. Like, what are the expectations? Were they clearly explained to you? If they were and you did not meet them, then it's not personal, right?
Yeah.
It's just that you weren't able to achieve the mandate. And then you move on and then you make sure that it keeps on growing. Because the thing also about, having a business and when you're scaling up is you got to understand that you have a fiduciary duty to your investors and your partners. So at the end of the day, every single decision that you have to make in a leadership position is always for the greater good and not just for yourself if you're doing things the right way.
Right.
So when you understand the gravitas of that position, then you start thinking differently about how you structure these things and the kinds of conversations that you're going to have with people and how you approach it because it's not personal. You just want to succeed. My goal in life is to win, whatever it is,
Hmm.
and not like the cue in T-Pain and then the song starts, but like, but you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, that's what we do. We have adversity and we win against it, whatever that adversity is, whether it's in business, in life, whatever it is. And I want to make sure that I build the best team that I can have around me so that we win together.
Exactly. I like how you said that, win together, because it's not just you. That's perfect. You mentioned, though, adversity just there. And I know I mentioned I kind of wanted to ask you this question prior to hopping on, but did you ever encounter some really big struggles or like adversity that you had to overcome, or even some failures that you really learned a hard lesson from that you could impart to me and the viewers here?
Yeah, a lot actually.
Yeah, I figure there's quite a few, but
um,
maybe it can give you some high level. You don't have to get into every
oh
little
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I
freaking
think
detail.
that okay, so the biggest failures were always because it was the counterpart of what I am as a human being, right? I'm the type of person that is driven. It's always go. That's the only speed that I know, and I get stuff done.
Hmm.
And on this road that I'm on, initially, like you want to grow, you want to become bigger, make more money, be financially free, whatever it is. So what ended up happening on my end is um, I had some contracts that were not properly aligned with the interests of everybody, including me.
Oh, okay.
So was it an error on my part? Absolutely. Was it an error on my lawyers that drafted the contract? Not necessarily because I wasn't asking the right questions and I wasn't focused on the what ifs. I just wanted to get a deal done. And that's what I'm realizing now. You're always going to have that person that has achieved things, whatever it is, okay?
Hmm.
That they have that bit of earned wisdom that when they talk about a situation, they're going to go on, well, did you think about this? Or did you think about that? Not because they're trying to crush your dream, but because they have the scars to prove it, right? And they
Right.
want to
They mean well.
share that knowledge with you. So one of the hardest lessons was, getting a deal under contract, having a partner on board, realizing that they're not pulling their weight. They're just dragging us and they're making this a whole lot harder and having us to buy them out.
Oh,
That
really?
was,
Okay.
yeah, that was a whole lot of stress on one of the deals that we did. And, I've bought properties that had foundation issues that were worse than I thought they were going to be. Um, you know, Hired contractors that were supposed to do the work a certain way, and it wasn't done that way. I was talking to you prior about my short-term rental, my cottage that I have in Quebec.
Hmm.
I partnered up with a GC on that one, and he had equity, and then all of a sudden, he stopped working. I had to go and finish the job.
Oh no. So you had to bootstrap and do some sweat equity.
Yeah, sweat equity, and then I had to negotiate a price for him to get out because he was in the contracts.
Mm.
So I think that, now that I'm talking about it, a lot of my biggest quote unquote failures or learnings stemmed from my trusting nature. But where I'm at right now is I would rather take a bit more time, ask more questions, make sure that we have better contracts, we have better what ifs in there, so that if something happens, sorry,
Hmm.
everybody is prepared for it. We have an exit plan and it's already been discussed. So emotions aren't part of the discussion. It's only finding the proper exit for everybody and moving on.
Mm. Question for you. I guess you say some of these what ifs. What are some of these that you mentioned? If is it like a budget overrun or timing issues? Is there anything specific you have to have, you think, in a contract every single time? Maybe not all
Well,
of these what ifs need to be covered, but are there like one or two that you just make sure those are hammered home?
yeah, so that's a good one. Like the budget, like who's gonna do, like how's the cash call gonna be structured if ever there's one.
Hmm.
But death,
Mm.
like if somebody was to die, like what does it look like? Is your spouse or your partner stepping in on your part? Do we have to buy them out
Oh yeah.
so that they're not a partner of something that they have no implication in? Um, Stuff like that. So I would say like death is a big one. That's not too contentious, but it's important to have. Also, if somebody does something illegal or they're arrested for something that's bad publicity for the group, like what's the plan there? Like if one of your directors on your company gets arrested for, I don't know, drunk driving or kill someone, like
Right. It's your reputation, your business's kind of
that's it.
livelihood. Yeah.
So,
Huh.
stuff like that. What if somebody wants to be bought out prior to the end of the term? What are the penalties for that? Do you structure penalties at the forefront? Do you not talk about them? There's a lot of stuff, and this is where going back to the notion of the team, Tom,
Hmm.
becomes super important because the right legal representation will bring this up when you're drafting your contracts. They will bring up experience that they've seen through either their career or they've heard about that, hey, we should consider this, we should consider that. Did you talk about this? We should incorporate this clause. So even if it doesn't happen, you at least have the conversation within the management group so you're prepared.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point actually. Get the right lawyers involved to make these contracts and these JVs or operating agreements because I've been one of those people myself in the past where you just, oh, I got this boilerplate one from someone else and then, or this one online and it might not necessarily cover everything. It's probably fine for like a onesie twosie deal, but when you're in the big leagues like yourself with many units at stake, then you need to cover your butts.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a really good thing that you just said, like the boilerplate contracts, because they work,
Hmm.
right? It's not like you won't be able to accomplish anything.
Right.
But I'm in a position right now where, mentally, what I like to say in those situations, yeah, you're right. Like you could do it, but what is it to just pay for a consultation to a lawyer? Go sit down with your partner in front of a lawyer, pay for 2 hours consultation, ask all the questions. Worst comes to worst, nothing comes out of it. And you've just spent a few hundred
Yeah.
bucks.
That's probably the
But
best
at least
outcome
you have peace
actually.
of mind. Sorry?
I said that's probably the best outcome actually that nothing happened. I mean, okay, we're golden, we're good.
That's it. Like whatever you have is good. But if ever
Yeah.
there's that one thing that you hadn't thought of or that
Yes.
is important for this type of project that's brought up, like you've saved probably months of anxiety, stress, and potential like legal fees for just having that discussion at that moment. So, and all like to be quite honest with you, I really enjoy talking to lawyers because it's like this weird way of talking to someone where you're trying to get information. They're trying to give it to you, but not directly. So you got to figure out the right way to say it. And
Right.
and it's just like this game. I'm joking, but
No,
no, I really
I got
enjoy.
you.
You know what I
You
mean?
got to play the game in a way.
I always find it very, very, very not just entertaining, but I learned a lot in those moments because you need that proper level of knowledge to make sure that you're going about these dealings with the right intentions, but also the right focus, right? Because
Mm.
at the end of the day, you're not here to take advantage of your partner. You're protecting yourselves against yourself.
I like you said against yourself because it's not like you're not butting heads necessarily with your partner, but this is just to avoid anything in the future.
There you go. There you go.
Question for you now, because this will maybe be a bit more of a rough segue, but I've been seeing you posting a lot on LinkedIn, and I have your LinkedIn actually in the description here, so people can find you after this. So a little plug there.
Thank you.
But what made you want to start posting on LinkedIn and kind of reaching out? Because everyone's always saying, okay, you got to post, got to put yourself out there. You got to post on like Facebook, and that's kind of what Wealth Genius preaches, right? Show your walkthroughs, post this, post that. Um, why are you heavily focusing in on LinkedIn right now?
So, great question. The, the reason is, like you said, when you're in our business, you need to have that social media presence. In every business, really, you need to have that. And I did, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok.
You're a
Uh,
TikToker, eh? Okay, okay.
yeah, well, I
I
have
know.
a small one, but
As
it's
long as it's
not.
not banned.
There you go. But yeah, so what ended up happening is, I started to realize that yes, Facebook is good for a certain demographic. IG is good for something. TikTok also, certain demographic, but I was attending a conference with another investment group that I'm a part of, and one of the experts giving, his speech was talking about LinkedIn, and what was brought up is basically LinkedIn is a billion user, is it?
Wow.
And 40% of them make over 250K
I guess
per
that makes
year.
sense because they're all business professionals. Everyone's a
There you go.
professional there with usually a
There you
degree in
go.
education.
So, that's one of the reasons. So I decided intentionally to focus on the social media right now that is underutilized and where I could have the most impact and not deal with as much noise as I'm seeing on the other platforms. And also, it's a representation of where I am in my business, right? Like we were saying before, I'm looking to work with accredited investors. I'm looking to bring my business up to a fund management level rather than syndications.
Mhm.
So I need to talk to the right people and be seen by the right people, and that's basically it.
Wow. So I think that's a little tidbit for you guys there. Post on LinkedIn. I've been trying to a little bit, but I see Rodrigo, and you should follow him on there, by the way. Every day, I think it's like around 8 or 9 a.m. It's like clockwork. It gets posted, and
Yeah.
it's valuable stuff too because it's kind of what we've been talking about. There's always some nugget in there that people can glean from the posts. So I really encourage people to go there. But the engagement too. I'm surprised because LinkedIn usually you never see likes or comments, but on the posts that you're posting, people are actually like you're getting like for LinkedIn getting like 20 to 30 to 40 likes or reactions is huge. Might not be anything
Yes.
for Facebook. For that getting that on LinkedIn, that's huge because then you also there's people probably that looked at it that didn't even react, but that still reached out to you after the fact.
Yep.
So I was blown away by seeing the engagement. Is all I'm trying to say. So I definitely it's reignited my thoughts to start posting more consistently again.
Well, it's one of the reasons why we're talking today, Tom, because
Yeah.
I started interacting with you more on LinkedIn. I knew who you were.
Mm.
We're part of the same groups, but that's just where it started again. So I think that if you're intentional about your business and you really want to start talking to the right people and scale up, right now LinkedIn is underutilized. The algorithm works in your favor, and it's just about being consistent, right?
Mm.
So, and there's less bots than in Facebook.
Oh yeah, that is one issue too. All the friend requests you get, it's just like it's a
I,
mess. It's a mess.
I think in the past 2 weeks, I got like 20 somewhat invites from Elon Musk's like alternates. Like all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it gets a bit boring at one point, but
Yeah.
like I think it's just about what you, and this is the tough part, actually. I'm thinking about it now.
Hmm.
Like your voice, quote unquote, on social media. Like what do you want to be? What do you want to be known for? Like, and for the longest time, that's what I struggled with because I'm a lot of things, right?
Right. You don't want to
And
like pigeonhole yourself either.
that's it. So when I realized that to make it easy for me, instead of focusing on what am I trying to be, what's the persona I'm trying to have online, or what's the message I'm trying to put out there, I'm like, well, I'll go where it's easy for me to just talk shop. And that was LinkedIn, right?
Mm.
So that's what it is.
Yeah, the voice thing, I've struggled with the same thing, saying, okay, well, I invest here in Windsor, for instance, as an example, but I also invest in the States. So what am I? Am I the Windsor guy, or me, and my brother, the Detroit guys now? Like it's always been tough, but you know what? It's just you do real estate, and that's all that really matters. And then just keep posting and providing value with regards to that, and then people will start to follow along and start to engage with you. I guess
Yeah.
for those that might be starting out or thinking of starting, what advice would you give? Because I know you were also a coach for a while, and you encountered a lot of newbies starting out. How do you think someone should get in the game? They don't necessarily have to start creating a fund like you're doing, but maybe they want to start doing like a fourplex or things like that. What do you suggest?
Uh, okay. First things first, you gotta have a clear understanding of what your financial situation is.
Hmm.
Don't smoke that hopium. Don't start, focusing on left and right and falling victim to the shiny object syndrome. Like, really, really have a clear understanding of what you can achieve on your own and what you're able to go for. That really is going to help out, right?
Right.
And then from that point on, I think it's a healthy dose of getting out of your comfort zone and starting to network with people that are doing what you're trying to do and trying to learn a bit from them. You got to start educating yourself. And a thing that I find that in today's age, especially that we were talking about social media just now,
Hmm.
um, focus when you're starting out, focus on not necessarily making money, but lowering your expenses because market shifts, governments change, CMHC changes,
All the time.
there's exactly right. So to be able to absorb that variance, um, you got to make sure that you have your operational cost under control. And that's easier to do than trying to achieve more returns initially, right?
Right.
So do that so you're making sure that your castle at home is protected. You don't have to worry too much about it. And if you take a bit more risk, well, that risk is going to be mitigated by the fact that you have your expenses under control and you're not suffering from lifestyle creep. And I think that's like probably the biggest one out there is be aware of the lifestyle creep because it's so easy to fall prey to that and to focus on, the bigger house or the nicer car or, something materialistic to impress people that don't really matter at the end of the world, at the end of the day, sorry.
No, you're right.
Um,
You're right.
you know what I mean? Like just focus on what's important to you.
Mm. I think you hit the nail on the head right there, saying, yeah, don't let the costs get inflated because I think a lot of time you'll blunt yourself actually in your progress if you say, oh, I need a new car or like I need this. It's all materialistic, and if you're at the end of the goal, you're trying to end of the day trying to get financial freedom or quit your job. You got to think long term and delay that gratification in order to actually achieve certain things. So maybe that means for the first 2 or 3 or 4 years, who knows, you might have to embrace the suck a little bit harder before you can really realize any fruits of your labor. So I like the fresh take of yours because not very many people actually say that. They're all not always, but people say, well, buy a place and flip it and make some money, but they don't really say the financial aspect first. Like make sure you're in a good spot so you can take those risks in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how old are you?
I'm about to turn 31 in a week from today, actually.
God, look at you, you're so young.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm asking this is like the moment that you hit like around the 30 mark, you're going to be in a potentially, hopefully, somewhat serious relationship, starting to build something with someone
Mhm.
for your future. And that requires a lot of work, and life is not easy, like apart from the real estate or the business side of things. So don't bring in more stress than you need to, and make sure that you protect yourself against it. And a lot of the couples out there, they start arguing about money, and that's probably like the main reason of divorces or separations. So,
Right.
just protect that. Like that's probably your most important thing. Your partner is your probably your best investment that you'll make in your life, and you got to protect it. So, make sure that you have your expenses under control. You appreciate the small things, and it's all about scaling up gradually, gradually, gradually. So you enjoy what you have, right? Like that's also key. Like it's not about getting everything that you want. It's about wanting everything that you have. That's like true happiness.
I like what you just said there. It's can you say that again? It's wanting true happiness, or
It's not about getting everything that you want. It's about wanting everything that you have.
it's wanting everything that you have. That's huge. I think the gratitude component is, I think, what's lacking in a lot of people's lives, myself included sometimes, because you're always looking at someone else, trying to compare myself to someone who's been in the game for 15 years. Like, there's no reason you should be doing that. Be thankful for what you got in front of you. And I think that will reduce a lot of your stress that you're just talking about right there. Maybe there's
Yeah,
other things you can do, like going to the gym or stuff too, to reduce stress. But that one, for the mental side of things, that is key.
yeah, I think so. It's like from a personal side, like I still house hack. Like my brother lives upstairs in my duplex.
That's
Like,
fantastic. Yeah.
but you know what I mean? Like that's like I live that way, and that's why I'm saying it. Like it's from personal experience. That's probably the reason why I'm able to have the level of success that I have right now, and I'm still growing. It's just because I don't have to worry about useless shit.
Yeah. You're like,
Just focus
you're ripping
on,
this back in. You're leading from the front by doing it yourself.
well, that's it.
Yeah.
So, and like again, going back to like the immigrant roots, and my parents were when we hear about stories of our families and people and friends, and when they immigrated, like that's what they did, and that's what immigrants, first generation immigrants, are still doing in this country.
Hmm.
They're not going about making more money initially. They're focusing on limiting their expenses so that
Yeah.
they can take a bit more risk eventually. And I think that's a very strong lesson that we need to remind ourselves so that we can grow, and we can hopefully get to a point where we have this sense of fulfillment in whatever we do in life, whatever that is.
Mm. It's tough to find what fulfills each other, but you can definitely do it, and you can figure out your why. And then after that, it's easy to wake up every day and just hustle after your dreams. That's for
100%.
sure. That's for
Oh
sure.
yeah, man.
Yeah. Rodrigo, I appreciate your time, man. Is there anything else that we haven't covered yet that you'd like to talk about before we sign off for today? Or again, where can they find you? They can find you on LinkedIn, and I guess technically Instagram and Facebook as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm on all the socials,
yeah,
but I think that I'm a bit more responsive nowadays on LinkedIn. So
there you
Rodrigo
have it.
Parada on LinkedIn and this face. I don't think there's too many of us. And anything else that I wanted to talk about? Well, I just want to say like thank you for the opportunity, Tom.
Yeah, no worries.
Anybody
Anytime.
out there that's looking to achieve what we're doing, whether investing in the States like you in Southern Ontario or something that I've accomplished, just don't give up. Uh, you only quit when you stop, right? Or you only lose when you quit, sorry.
Hmm.
And just keep on going. It's not easy, but there's a reason for it, because if not, everybody would be doing it. And
That's the truth.
there's other crazy people like you that are doing or trying to achieve what you're doing. So find them, find your tribe, and go get it. And like you said, embrace the suck. Embrace the suck.
There's a lot of suck out there, but it's worth it.
Oh, oh yeah.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, you can actually start to learn the suck, and that's what I'm realizing for myself. It's like, wow, I kind of actually like getting the crap kicked out of me. Like, it's not so bad after all. It's just how
it's
you
not.
reframe things in your mind, right? And
That's
that's a
it.
powerful thing. Rodrigo,
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time, and thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. And future people who watch this on YouTube or Facebook again later on too. But again, comment, like, subscribe on the All Things REI YouTube. I gotta remember to keep saying that. Follow Rodrigo, and if you have any questions, please reach out to either of us, because we love real estate. All right, good night, everyone. Take care.
Take
Bye
care.
for now.